Welcome back to another edition of House of Horns. My name is Victor Corona, aka Victor Producer, and joining me is Gilbert Manzano, staff writer for Sports Illustrated. We're here to recap the Rams loss to the Eagles. Gilbert, how are you doing? How was it to be there up close to this very intriguing game that was the Eagles and Rams?
Yeah, it was an interesting game for about, you know what, I wanted to say three quarters, but no, I'll say one half. This game really changed before halftime, like the 49ers game. The Rams gave up a quick, long touchdown before halftime just to kill the momentum. And then that third quarter, it was still a 1 point game. I mean, a one score possession, there you go, one possession game, one score game. There you go. And they just couldn't get it done. It was a lot of ugly football, no execution, no development, no plays. They couldn't get anything going. And defensively, they were holding it down, but they couldn't stop Dallas Goedert. They couldn't stop AJ Brown. It was kind of like pick your poison. So, to me, when I wrote my story for SI yesterday, late third quarter, I declared, all right, I've seen enough. They're not on the same level as the Eagles. There are different levels here. And eventually, talent and experience is going to beat you when you don't capitalize in your moments.
Yeah, and I mean that's well put there because I thought the same thing. I think, in the second half, the Eagles just, you know, put their will on the Rams, and the Rams couldn't respond. They didn't have an answer for it. And the Rams, I think, I mean, the Eagles just realized, hey, we have the better team here. We're just gonna do the simple things to get out of here with the win. We're gonna run the ball right up the gap, and you can't stop it. And we're gonna run the tush push or the brotherly shove, whatever you want to call it at this point, and you can't stop it. And we're gonna attack your offensive line, with blitzes and try to make you one dimensional, and they did that.
Yeah, they were definitely one dimensional. And that was surprising. Like, you did have moments, and okay, let me before I say it, I don't want to say Sean McVay didn't they ignored Kyron Williams in the running game because to get in a rhythm, you got to have long drives. And I wanted to put the blame right now on McVay because like run the ball more, like your identity, like especially in these games. But when you try to be physical against the most physical team in the NFL, that probably won't work either. So I get the thinking there too. But with Kyrie Williams getting 13 carries and Ronnie Rivers got like one or two, like, that's not enough. But I get it. You can't sustain long drives. So if you don't have long drives, you can't run the football. So when you're one dimensional and Vic, like I don't know if I jinx him, but when Stafford threw that second touchdown, I think it was to Puka, and he
Yes.
was happy, celebrating, doing the finger guns, all that. I'm like, they're doing whatever they want with the passing game. So I don't know if they should have established a run a little more in the first half because when they got to the second half, it just fell apart. I don't know if the defense adjusted with Jalen Carter and Hassan Reddick and getting more pressure, but after that, it just went downhill. And they were one dimensional and they were easy to predict. They couldn't get anything going. And, you know, I was in the Eagles locker room for this game and I just found out that Darius Slay hates being called Darius. You have to call him Slay, which felt a little weird, but that's his name. And I said, "Hey, Slay, did they do anything differently with Puka and Cooper?" He's like, "Not really, but we expected it because of Sean McVay." And they were fired up. And once they made maybe some little adjustments, it was pretty much over from there.
I thought for me the big difference was, and I pointed it out on the live, was them giving up that four-play drive to end the game, just like we saw with the 49ers. That killed your momentum, and then you come out in the second half and you're flat. Like, not to take advantage of that. Like, part of the reason why you get the ball in the second half is because you have confidence in your, coach to be able to scheme up things, and for you not to take advantage of it, that was really surprising to see. The defensive coordinator for the Eagles outcoach Sean McVay in the second half, and that's the reality of it, Gilbert.
Yeah, well, I wanted to look at the possessions here for the Rams, and I have it right here. And they only had one drive that went over 10 plays, and that was the first one. The touchdown, like you mentioned, you know how to scheme, you know how to design. You take the ball and you go upfield and you score. To come out of the for the second half, they had 7 plays, and they had a punt eventually. So, but it got worse after that, Victor. It was 5 play drive, 6 play drive, 6 play drive, 5 play drive, punt, punt, punt. turnover on downs, end the game. So they did nothing in that second half, and you could see. I think you mentioned on the live show, Vic, that McVay was just frustrated, and I think this frustration is a higher level than last year because last year is kind of like we suck, we have no
Yes.
chance, and that sucks. But here it's kind of like, oh, they're right there, they're close, they're competing with the 49ers, they're competing with the Eagles for a half. Then you shoot yourself in the foot with penalties, then you come out flat, and it's one of these games where like I can't even assess what the hell happened because they were there, they had their opportunities, and like you mentioned, shout out to the Eagles DC and their defense and their pressure. They were holding it down. And like I mentioned, 7-6-5-5 play drives, it's not gonna get it done there. So I don't know what happened between halftime to the second half, but they lost it somehow. And maybe that last touchdown was where that inexperience comes in, where like you're mentally like fatigued, like we had them, and you beat yourself too much. That's a sign of a young team. I think that's why Sean McVay was a little fired up. It was like we have potential. We don't want to wait for next year. We want to get it done now. But sometimes you have to wait to grow and learn from that. And that's probably what's the most frustrating part because you do have a Stafford, you do have Aaron Donald, you have a Cooper Cup, but the other guys are all just inexperienced and they're all learning. And even Cooper Cup and Matthew Stafford, they have miscommunication on some of the routes there because he hasn't been playing. So even the experts are struggling too a bit.
Yeah, and that happens. I mean, we talked about it. I think that was a concern as we talked about it in the preview was what's going to happen between Matthew Stafford, Cooper Cup, inserting him back into this offense. He looked great, but in the second half, you can tell that there was, some chemistry that needs to be worked out, missing some practice during the offseason and then the first couple of games, you can tell that that chemistry will get worked out, but in terms of the growing pains, that's part of it, Gilbert. They're the third youngest roster for a reason, and I think one of the things I pointed out in the live was showing seeing this fire from Sean McVay is a good thing because it shows that he knows he has a good talent. He has talent, and he knows he's got good young talent. He just needs to, I think that's part of it is the growing pains. It's gonna come with it. He just needs to learn how to coach them up. And I think he's been so used to having all this talent and just them knowing what to do that now I think part of the frustration for him is going to be look, I got to be patient with this team because I have a roster that is really young and, I'm going to have to not only help my coaches, coach them up, but I'm also going to take some lumps along the way this season.
Yeah, that's why Sean McVay was so quick to say it was like that 49ers game. That same thing happened with all the mistakes there, and he was really frustrated. And again, like I don't know what to say besides just talent and experience and being more physical with the Eagles got him. And it's funny because every single week we try to catch ourselves and say don't overreact to one game. But then here we are, five games into the season. And it's kind of like what we figured the rounds would be. Like, yeah, there were surprises with the Seahawks game, but we knew they're going to be pesky. They're not going to be contenders. And I think I can say now with 5 games that maybe they're a playoff team, but maybe they're not. And that's where they are. They're like average. And it's better than last year when they were way below average. So, you know, and I know people get in the comments too saying like hey, they could beat them this week and this week. And that's true. But after like say it's a midway point of the season, we're probably gonna look at this Rams squad and still say, yeah, they're probably middle of the pack. And when you play the 49ers, when you play the Eagles, it's tough when you're trying to grow. And sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes like you win these one score games. You're capitalizing on your momentum. But we all know in the back of our minds, you were a year early. You're not ready yet, but a year early. And I think the Rams are trying to get there a year early. But regardless, if you're looking at a glass half full mindset, you're still ahead, or maybe you're right on track. Like to beat the Seahawks, to push the Eagles, push the 49ers. They had the ugly game with the Bengals. They beat the Colts. That was a big game. You are technically ahead of schedule, but then you always want more. And you want to get greedy, but you still got to remember that you're very young, like you mentioned, a young roster. And I think that's where Sean McVay is trying to have this the conflict with the emotions within with Stafford. I'm sure Aaron Donald is going through the same thing. Like, man, why can't we just win these damn games? And it's like, oh, you got to wait. And next week when they play the Cardinals, maybe they'll go back to okay, we're better than most teams. We'll feel good. But then when they play, again the 49ers or the Seahawks, it's like it's going to be tough again.
Yeah, and you start thinking about things like, look, if this schedule would have been easy and you're here sitting at 4-1, 3-2, you're like, are you thinking, oh, this is a better team than we thought? But at least having these tough games to start the season, you can kind of see where they are. You can actually assess this team. You're not thinking, well, is are they playing above what they need to be, or are they just an average team? And I think right now we can say, for certain after 5 games that they're a little bit better than we thought they were going to be to start the season, but I don't think they're a playoff team just yet. I think they might need to go and invest,
Mm.
in a few more players at the trade deadline, and I think you'll be okay with that if they do that.
Yeah, because it's funny because like for me, I projected 7 wins. I think you might have had 9 or 10,
9.
or
Yeah, 9.
or maybe they're an eight and 9 team. We're like it's like right there in the middle. But uh, it's funny because we don't get too carried away. But like here we are, week 5, and it kind of feels like we were both a little correct in our assessment. I think most people in general were. There were some people who just completely thought the Rams were going to stink and tank, and I was on that boat somewhat until training camp arrived and I saw the defense do well. And shout out to the defense. They made life difficult for the Eagles. Like if the Eagles, say the Eagles of 2022 was playing the SoFi, they would have blown out the Rams by like 20 points. Like let's keep it real. The Eagles are still finding themselves, and I don't want to knock the Eagles because when you go through a long season and you make it to the Super Bowl, like you mentioned, Vic, the stats. It's hard to get back to the top and go do it
Yeah.
again. They're just getting by, and that's what a great team does. That's what a consistent winner does. Just get by and win your games, get to the playoff, and bring it on. But it wasn't like down the field Jalen Hurts. It wasn't like, okay, Devontae Smith and AJ Brown, we're getting cooked here. It was more like Jalen Hurts. Okay, they're making it hard, so it's gonna be a Dallas Goddard there, the tight end, and it was a big day for tight ends, by the way. They were all doing Sam Laporta, George Kittle, they're all balling out. But for Hurts, it was like, all right, it's your day. We see some stuff in the middle because they're not gonna let us play down the field. Let's take it. And it wasn't even a big DeAndre Swift day running wise, but Hurts took the lanes too because it was all kind of short stuff and he was running. So when you have so many options, it's pick your poison. And eventually, when like you don't capitalize, it's gonna hurt you. So I think it's more on the Rams offense than it was the Rams defense yesterday.
I agree. I mean, when you hold and we talked about the Eagles' red zone struggles, and the Rams took advantage of that. I think the Eagles scored on 2 of their 6 drives in the red zone. The defense held them to three field goals there in the red zone as well. So, I mean, you did as I talked about, the defense wasn't the problem, and Akilo Witherspoon has been a bright spot for this
Hmm.
secondary. Kobe Durant missing that tackle, was a big play as well. I understand Ernest Jones with 15 tackles. I mean, this defense has played above what expectations, and so they weren't the problem. I think this is the frustration with fans today is the fact that you expected a lot more from Sean McVay and this offense, and I think it's going to take a little bit of time. Now you have your number one star in Cooper Cup back. You got to insert him back. You got to get that chemistry working with Matthew Stafford, and then Puka Nakua hasn't missed a step. He's still everybody thought, okay, well now he's gonna take a back seat. No, you have a 1 and 2 now, a 1A and 1B actually, and you should be ready to roll. You should be excited about what the as we talked about, Gilbert, this season. One of the main things we said, if you can get through this tough schedule, and then you have you can ease into the season and finish strong, you might be able to get into the playoffs. And I think that's still, I think that's still the goal.
Yeah, I think they could certainly make it there. I think the schedule opens up a bit. Like for me, I kept thinking about what are they gonna do for these 5 games before the Cardinals game. Like it's gonna be like, can they easily be in 1-4? Can they be 0-5? And are they tanking for the Cardinals game? And here we are, and they're 2-3. And I think I did say okay, I challenged them. Okay, you got to win one of those Bengals games, one of the 49ers, one of the Eagles, and they went 0-3, but they got lucky with the Seahawks game, and the Colts were better than expected. So I think it's still a very good start, 2-3. Uh, but they have opportunities. It's gonna, and we'll see if they'll capitalize for the rest of the season because it's easy to say Sean McVay, wasn't doing well. You got got out schemed or outplayed by the defense of the Eagles. But when Witherspoon got that interception, like you had a moment for the offense, Stafford to do something, and they didn't. And it was still, I think it was like a 4 point game actually. I think it might have been, or maybe it was three, 17-14. Yeah, it was 17-14,
Yeah.
and they didn't do anything. And I get it, like I think I'm guessing it started on the 20 or 25 from the interception there in the end zone, and they couldn't do anything. It's probably like 5 or 6 plays, and then the Eagles get the ball back and they score, and it's kind of like, okay, it's over here. They're not gonna make up this deficit here, but uh, like I mentioned, Jalen Carter, Hassan Reddick, 2 sacks each. Like what it was like the tinkering with the offensive line was an issue there. Not everybody being healthy. I think Havenstein might have left for a bit. Like I
He
was losing
did,
track.
like, and that was part of the problem too, because like with the whole, and I brought it up, like the whole concussion thing. I understand it's a rule. If someone looks like he's got a concussion, you got to take him out. My problem with that play, Gilbert, was that they brought in the backup McClendon, right? But then you shift the running back over to try to help Ship. So Hassan Reddick was able to move over even more. And then that just gave him a straight shot to go and sack Matthew Stafford instead of leaving Ronnie Rivers right next to him to be able to pick up the blitz there or the pass rusher. You just left them. You just gave them more of a straight shot. So like and Sean McVay was pissed about that play, and I'm like, well, you're relying on kids to be able to know what you're supposed to do in that situation when you're bringing in a backup and you're wanting to chip the edge rusher there. It's a lot to process. But by then, Gilbert, as I said,
Yeah.
the game was over at that point, anyways.
Yeah, and I was, selfishly, I was hoping to score one more so they could cover the spread because that was my pick there. But I got the under at least on that one. But uh, yeah, like again, I thought, when the total line came out at 50 points, I'm like, there's no respect here for these good defenses here. So it was low scoring. The Eagles haven't found their rhythm just yet, but they're doing enough to get by, and that's why they're a better team. But yeah, I'm ready for final thoughts, Vic.
Yeah, and I'll just start it off with this, Gilbert. I thought, and I mentioned it in the live. I think that going through this tough schedule is gonna help you out. I think that right now, the perception around the league now has changed on this Rams team. People believe in this team. They're starting to notice that there's talent on defense. They're just super young. So you're gonna have your ups and downs, your growing pains with this team. You're just gonna have to prepare yourself to be frustrated. It's going to go up and down the rest of the season, and this is, a game like this one is going to, test your nerves, test your frustrations as you go forward following this team. And I think that's part of it, Gilbert.
Yeah, and I think we're going to be talking long picture or foreseeable future. They're in a good spot. Like they could beat the Cardinals. They are pesky and they are competitive. By the way, check out the preview for that episode that comes out either Wednesday night or Thursday morning. Check it out. Rams, Cardinals hosting them week 6. But then after that, they play the Steelers also at home. So you gotta end this 3 game homestand with 2 out of 3. And I know the Steelers beat the Ravens, but I don't think that much of the Steelers. I think they're in the same level as the Rams. So that could be a pick 'em, but it's a winnable game too. So you win those 2, you're looking pretty. And after that, I forgot the schedule, but I think that's probably the way the Rams are treating it. Let's finish this homestand on a strong note. My the thing I'll end here, I think the offensive line is starting to become like a legit problem like last year. Like there's a lot of moving parts, and when guys are, when the 5 guys are not getting a rhythm and not playing together, it could be Alec Jackson one day, Joe Noteboom, Rob Havenstein. Like guys are moving, and you don't get into a rhythm. And when you're doing a lot of moving parts, I think there could be like a conflict with Sean McVay saying, if I'm doing this to account for that, then I can't do this. And I think that's where the mistakes start adding up. You start maybe putting too much trust like on the younger guys to do their job because you don't want to take away from what you do. So, uh, you know, McVay has done a good job adjusting so far this year with this new running style that he wants that they didn't really do this past week.
No.
But I guess you can't really outmuscle the strongest team in the NFL, but with the both sides of the trenches for the Eagles team. Uh, but I think they got to make some adjustments, and you can't have Stafford rely. I don't want to see like last year. Stafford sees pressure, and then all right, Cooper Cup, Cooper Cup, Cooper Cup. I'm not saying he
Yeah.
did a lot of that this game, but there's tendencies there because that's what you feel is your comfort zone. So offensive line needs to get it together, and I think if they do, it will probably fix a lot of the problems for this team offensively.
I agree. I mean, I think that's where it starts is especially offensively is fixing your problems on the offensive line going forward, getting everybody healthy. And then we'll see what they do, going forward. But, as you said, make sure you check out the preview for the Cardinals. They're up next, and they're another team that everybody expected would tank, and they're not. They're going to be a formidable opponent for the Rams. They need to make sure they're ready for it. They don't overlook the Cardinals. It's a divisional game, so that's another thing that you can. And you need to win your first game at home. I think that's a very important thing. So that is something to check out. We'll be back in a couple of days to break that down for you guys. Gilbert, what do you have working at Sports Illustrated that people can check out?
Yeah, maybe you might not want to check out my 5 things that we learned because one of them was the Eagles are just on a different level than the Rams, and people are really liking the Rams. And it's kind of one of those things like it's a reality check. Okay, they're not there yet, but it's a fun story. And I mentioned that in my 5 things we learned for week 5. I usually have a winners and losers column. Uh, was it a Tuesday morning? So kind of the weekly stories that I have. Check it out, and definitely for something on the Compas on the Beat Network, we're gonna start adding, once a week, maybe or twice a week. And now I think about it, and a general NFL content from Compas on the Beat Network. It's gonna be streaming live from our YouTube channel. We're gonna toss it here in House of Horns. So if you see like, hey, this is not really Rams, it's general NFL. Check it out. See if you like it. Thumbs up. Give a comment to support it there. Mondays we go live and Thursdays we go live. Monday's kind of the recap show of what happened on Sunday, and then Thursdays are looking ahead to what's going to occur the next Sunday. So if you see NFL stuff from Compas on the Beat YouTube, don't be alarmed. We still have a lot of House of Horns content, but we want to see if you guys are interested in checking out the general NFL stuff. So again, if you see it, support, show love. But don't worry, a lot of Rams coverage here on this channel.
Yeah, and then just in general, if you like betting, we'll have our best 5 bets of the week. Or if you like fantasy sports, you can hop on there and ask us questions. We have a lot of stuff with the rest of the league. That's our NFL preview week to week. So make sure that you check that out if you're interested in that. But
Wait,
you want to
one more promo before
go
you,
ahead,
you
go
go
ahead.
on. Uh, I noticed that people found their first. Is it like should I call it like an Easter egg hunt here for a
Yes,
potential giveaway? I've noticed. I wrote it down. We'll do another one for the preview show. Rams Cardinals. We're not gonna do it at the end because now I have to trick people, and it won't be the same phrase. But if
there you go.
you're catching on, you're watching, and you hear the key word for the comment, I'm gonna add another 2 entries for you. So I love that. That was pretty cool to see in the
Yeah.
comments. House of Horns, House of Horns. So uh, I'm gonna do little Easter eggs throughout all the shows until we officially announce the giveaway.
Yeah, you're turning into a Marvel guy there, Gilbert, with all the Easter eggs now.
Hey, like people are liking the kind of a game here, and it's cool that
Yeah,
people wait until 55 minutes in. But I don't want people fast forward now to find the
yeah,
phrase.
yeah. That's really cool of people to do that. Just wanted to get your. I know we skipped it, but do you want to give somebody a 12 pack of beer, or are we just skipping it just because it was a a
I
bad
could
loss?
I could give it is an ugly loss. I don't want to, but I think this guy deserves it, and we might have the same guy. So maybe you mentioned already on the show or it was before, I forget, but Akilo Witherspoon was a pretty good pickup for this team. An inexperienced roster that we all have questions about in the secondary. We do want to see Trey Tomlinson eventually, but
But
Witherspoon's been holding him down, making plays, and just helping guys. Kobe Durant, we had higher expectations. He's kind of been up and down. Deion Kendrick is feisty, but he gets in trouble with the flags there. So the even kill guy has been Witherspoon. So with that, have yourself a tall can of Modelo. Keep it to yourself because it was an ugly game, but you deserve a beer for your effort.
yeah, I'm gonna go on the other side. I'm just Cooper Cup. Just good to see him back. No issues with the hamstring. Hopefully he stays healthy the rest of the season. And I think that was part of the reason we didn't see any sweeps
Yeah.
on in the game. I think they're still trying to fill him out, making sure they don't push him too much. But yeah, just having him back was such a big deal, and it looked like he didn't miss a step. But it'll be a good thing to have him back. It's a good thing to have him back, and then have him the rest of the season. Hopefully, he stays healthy. But that's all I have for you, Gilbert. We're on to week 6. We're like Bill Belichick. We're on to week 6. The Cardinals are up next, and so we'll be previewing that on Wednesday. So that's all I have for you, Gilbert.
Yeah, let's move on to week 6. Like I mentioned, check out all the content on House of Horns. Check out the content of Compas on the Beat. Show support, show love. You always do. Continue to do it. Thank you for that. But on that note, ya nos vamos. Pues vámonos.